this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. I am here today with Whitney Owens, and I am thrilled to share her with you all, learn a little bit about her climb and the things she has going on in the realm of business. Whitney, welcome.
Thank you, Julia.
Absolutely. If you could please introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. Well, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you and your energy. It inspires me. So glad to be here. So I'm Whitney Owens. I'm located in Savannah, Georgia, which is right on the coast of Georgia. It's a beautiful historic place. If you've never been here, you need to come. I am married to a Methodist pastor. We have two children, a 10 and a 6-year-old. Yes. And so when I'm not being mommy and wife, I have a group practice here in Savannah. It has a faith-based component to it as well, even though we see clients from all backgrounds. It is a private pay practice. I have 14 therapists. And then when I'm not doing that, I am consulting faith-based practice owners around the nation, helping them learn how do we appropriately integrate our faith in the work that we do as therapists and business owners.
Mm-hmm. So there is a plethora that we can talk about there. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your climb, and is where you are now where you envisioned for yourself when you started off on this path?
Absolutely not. Never. Even when I just told you how many therapists, I still feel really uncomfortable saying it because I'm so shocked that this has become my life. So I'm still in that, I guess, humble phase at times, which I hope I stay there. So, I remember not knowing what I was going to do with my life. I was interning at the Wesley Foundation, which is the Methodist campus ministry at the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. It's a wonderful campus ministry and really trained me up a lot in my faith and understanding things about myself. I thought I was going to go into ministry. And then it's a very long story that sounds super, super spiritual, but I went on a retreat and felt the Lord calling me to be a therapist. So it was after that I started looking into graduate programs, and I saw that I had some skills in talking to people and being able to kind of put the pieces together for people, bringing wisdom and comfort. So those were kind of the things that started showing me, hey, maybe you got a skill for this. So I went to a graduate program called Richmont Graduate University. It's located in Atlanta and Chattanooga, and it is a program that integrates faith as well as counseling. So I got a master's in professional counseling, took some theology courses alongside those. I loved that experience. And then after that, my husband, while we were at that school, he was working for the school as a recruiter, and his dream was to go to seminary to become a pastor. But at the time, this program that he was going to go to, he had a full scholarship. It fell through, not because of him. It's a long story. Someone stole some money. I won't go into it, but that's for another podcast. But so he ended up not getting to go to the seminary he thought he was going to go to, but then he ended up getting offered a full ride to Denver Seminary. So as soon as I finished my program, we moved out to Colorado so he could go to seminary for free.
Wow.
Yeah. So we did that. I worked at a psychiatric hospital for 4 years. I always wanted to do private practice because I love that one-on-one component, sitting with people, and I'd had some of that experience before. And it was all thanks to, I don't know if you know Dawn Gabriel, my friend.
Getting to know Dawn.
Okay, she's wonderful. So I was out in Colorado really wanting to go into private practice, couldn't seem to find an outlet. I wasn't licensed. And one day I was going to the Chick-fil-A, and Dawn was coming out, and she recognized me because we worked at the same place, even though it was, hundreds of employees. And she liked my purse. So she said something about my purse, and I said, that's so cool. Let's get lunch. And so then we became friends. And then she started working at a private practice, and she invited me to join. And so she was my clinical supervisor for a very short time.
No, it was Dawn.
Mm-hmm. No.
Very cool.
It's kind of fun. And so she was my clinical supervisor. We worked at a practice together. I was there about 2 months before the lady went crazy and fired us all in one day, all the therapists. We called it Bloody Monday. Mm-hmm. Well, she did. She dubbed it Bloody Monday.
So my gosh.
Yeah. And so then it was like, okay, well, what are we going to do? So we started a private practice within 1 week. Yeah. So all the therapists that were there, we rented space. We all got our own LLCs, and we all started seeing our clients and just like kind of more of a collective. Dawn was still doing my supervision during that time. And so I never thought I'm going to do private practice necessarily, like own my own business. But it was like, I have these clients. If I want to keep working with them, I got to do this right now and get them over at the new practice. And so that's what I did. I was very scared, but it worked. And so then when I moved to Georgia, my husband got a job at a church here. And this is where we're originally from. So we were trying to get back here. I looked everywhere for a job because I just needed to be able to get hours and get experience. My license did not transfer from Colorado to Georgia. Georgia made me go back and get more supervision. It was crazy. So I couldn't get a job anywhere. And then a friend of a friend was like, hey, connect with my friend. He is a counselor too. So we had coffee, and he was like, let's rent some space. And, we can do it through the church, even though we'll be at a house across the street. And so the church was our, where we made our money go through. And we basically started a practice across the street. And then I kind of kept growing from there. But yeah, I never thought, I'm going to be this big private practice owner or anything like that.
And with this climb, the theme that I keep hearing is like, there were obstacles. There were definitely things that got in the way, but you kept your eyes on the prize and kept moving forward. Do you think that really came from faith and that moment that you described where you were on the retreat? Like, tell me more about how you persevered even when things got in the way.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that insight to the table. I sometimes don't think that about myself necessarily. I don't know. I guess I just feel like you've always got to keep going. Like, in my mind, giving up is not really an option, Could
that be the Enneagram 1 in us by any chance, Whitney?
Sure. Definitely.
Yeah, I can see that being a piece. So I relate so much to many aspects of your story. And I think a big reason why it was so important for me to have you on this show is because integrity really rings true in your own podcast, in your journey, in the consulting. Tell me about what that means to you, what integrity means and how you've preserved that.
I do think integrity means being true to yourself, right? And being true to those around you. And to tell you the truth, Julia, I probably wasn't very integritous at times in my life. And it was a few years ago that I really started taking the mask off of who I am and becoming vulnerable, like understanding that importance of vulnerability. And none of us really want to be vulnerable. So I had to start forcing myself to be vulnerable. And as all things, the more you do it, it gets easier with time. And so now I feel like have a lot more integrity than I did before. And maybe it looked that way on the outside, it just didn't feel that way on the inside. But now I feel so much more clarity and focus and enjoying my work more instead of doing it for everybody else.
Can we talk more about that? Because that resonates so much.
Okay.
Are you saying early on, looking back, you recognize that a lot of choices or decisions that you made were rooted more in other people, and then there was a shift at some point where you put yourself more at the forefront? Okay.
Yeah.
Any particular moment that you can think of where that transition happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I went on a week-long retreat. This was in 2019. And I would have never thought that about myself necessarily. I mean, I think all of us have different levels of taking masks off, right? And I think it's in God's goodness that he only takes us as far as we can go. So I've come to know myself more, and then I get comfortable, and then I come to know myself more, right? And I become more vulnerable. But during this time away, I had a dream the first night of this retreat. Retreats. They're so powerful. So anyway, but when I was on this retreat, I had a dream, and through that dream and talking to the group about it, I realized that I was hiding. And I was very scared of people truly seeing who I am and what that would mean It was also at that time, the couple of months before that, I had felt that stirring to become a faith-based practice consultant, and I did not want to do that. I thought that there were way too many consultants out there. I didn't want extra work. I thought I'd be a flop. I mean, all the things, right? So I was running away from that too. And so I think that those two things combined, it was like, Whitney, you better find yourself and step into this, or you're never going to be happy, fulfilled. And so that was part of it. And then now I can't remember your question, actually. We were talking about.
It just seems like there's this push in every step where it's like you just continue to move forward. We were talking about putting others over self and then prioritizing you.
All right. Yes. Okay. So on this retreat, that was when I realized that I needed to take my masks off. And then I started noticing how much I perform for everybody. Right.
Ooh.
So even my, especially my group practice, like a lot of my insecurities about being a boss, I was like playing them out and not realizing it. I had never been a boss before. I didn't know what I was doing. So I would like act like I had it all together, but I really didn't. It's like I didn't want them to know problems in the business. I didn't want them to know issues with other people. Not that we need to tell our employees everything, because we certainly don't.
Sure.
I also think there's power in vulnerability.
Yes.
And so after that retreat, it really wasn't all that much long after that, the worst thing that's ever happened in my practice, knock on wood, please don't ever happen again, or anything worse happened. And one of my therapists had started a private practice behind my back. And it wasn't even just that. It had been going on for 4 months. She had gotten on insurance panels, and I'm a cash pay practice. So that's concerning for clients and insurance fraud.
Yeah.
And she also took a few things and made them a part of her practice that were a part of my practice. And so anyway, I didn't even know until till this situation occurred where I saw a client scheduled, and I was like, "You're not in the office at that time." She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm seeing them through this other thing." And I'm like, "What? Like, what's going on here?" And
oh, wow.
And so that was a really scary time for me, and felt very betrayed at that moment by this person. And I decided to be vulnerable with my team about it. I mean, I didn't go into all the details, but just that, like, this was hard on me. And so it was kind of that retreat and being vulnerable with them when I got back about who I am and that I really don't have it all together. And then this occurred a few months later, but my team came around me in this beautiful, authentic way. They loved me through it. And now we're so much stronger for it. And I feel like our culture and who we are as a family is so much different because of that.
I am sorry to hear that happened. I actually had a similar situation that just transpired in my team, and I had a similar approach to yours and can definitely relate to that support that I felt. And I really thought long and hard about the fact that they needed to be aware of what happened, but being selective, obviously, about what was shared, but really coming from a place of honesty and disbelief and shock, and really just processing all of those emotions together. And they have really come together. And I can see this being a similar situation, and hope that ultimately I walk away with the same feeling that you do, that the team is stronger when you go through something together as a collective. There's a lot to be said for that. So
yes,
I appreciate you sharing, and that there is obviously a light at the end of the tunnel and good things that can come out of it. Tell me more about this team that you formed.
Yeah. Well, I hope the same, for you too, Julia. And it's when we go through brokenness that we find like the sunshine, right? After the storm.
For sure.
Yeah. So
one of my friends told me before you get into that it's only when it rains that we ultimately grow. And I think about that all the time, that like we need darkness and we need light. We need the good along with the bad, because then we can really step into it when it's like this beautiful sunny day. We feel it, we sit in it, we embrace it. But we need that rain and darkness too. And it's all a part of it. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, 100%. When it rains, you grow. I like that. Okay, so the Water's Edge counseling team, I just love them. I feel so blessed to have all of them in my life. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that God has a way of bringing each person I mean, when my team laughs at me, but every Christmas party, I go through the story of every hire and why they got their job and how much I love them. Yeah, one year we're like all crying. I mean, it was beautiful. So yeah, we are kind of close.
Mm-hmm.
But that was important to me.
That doesn't just come from nowhere. So like, what are the things that you feel maybe about you that are really allowing for that connection? Because, obviously there's personal and professional, and we all want to be careful around that. But it's so beautiful when you can come together and it's like a family, and not all practices run that way. So tell me how you got there.
Yeah. So somebody told me one time, like, you get to hire the people that you want to spend time with. And I think that's something to be said, that I want to spend time with some fun people. So I try to hire people that I think are going to be fun, but also do their jobs well, of course. And then we have regular get-togethers and do silly and fun things. And I think it's important for therapists, but I also think it sets a precedent for what your work here is like, that you're going to work hard and you're going to play hard. So like a few months ago, we did an arcade night. I rented out an old arcade, like the old school stuff. And we played Pac-Man, Ninja Turtles. I mean, all the things. So that was really fun. For Christmas, we went to this lady in my church. She's like in her 80s, but she has this like penthouse apartment that looks like you're in New York City, downtown Savannah. And so she let us all come for free, and I hired a cook, and we hung out in her amazing apartment. So, it's stuff like that. And even the last time, what did we get together? Oh, we went to a benefit just a few weeks ago, benefit dinner. And the team was like, I'm so glad, because we sometimes don't see each other during the day. And I was like, this is so cool. So I think that's part of it. I think also encouraging relationships among the team. We talked at the beginning about how we're going to get into the idea of how do I do it all. I can do it all because I have people I can depend on, and they've built relationships with one another. So just like a small example, like one of our interns, she had to go to the emergency room last week with her baby. Because I won't go into why, but she was at the emergency room. And so normally, if I didn't have a team to help each other, it would be me reaching out and checking on her. But I didn't even have to do that. My admin did that. She's the one thinking about it. And then when the intern came back this week, I said, hey, I just want to make sure you know that I was thinking about you too. Did you feel that through Lisa's messages? She goes, oh yeah, I knew that you all were checking on me. And so I'll see sometimes my clinical director, she's a gift giver. So she'll like give a gift to my admin. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's so beautiful. And I didn't even have to get involved in that. And so they're making relationships with one another. And I think that's what makes it continue to grow, is it's not dependent on me as the business owner. We always want to do that with our systems, but I think doing that with your relationships within your business is important too.
Is there anything specific that you did to set that stage? I mean, it sounds like coming together, you obviously acknowledge that they're all human beings and you view them as people, and obviously not just employees. That clearly shows. But anything specific that helped foster those relationships beyond the stuff outside of work? Yeah.
I'm thinking we talk about that, at the hiring. Like we talk about family, we talk about relationships. I like to do my hiring process in person. Some people will create videos and that's great, but like I want everyone to know that this is a personal touch kind of place. Like we are customer service, we are relational. We are picking up the phone and scheduling people. We're greeting people at the doors. So I think the types of people that we hire to work here are relational people.
Gotcha.
They're not just here for a paycheck. At least I'm pretty sure they're not. They really want to do the work and love the clients and love the team.
But that's another piece you're speaking to that has been a little bit challenging for me, where to expect that someone who works for you is going to have the level of investment that you have is unrealistic. But it seems like you found this middle ground of like more investment than a typical employee, which is incredible. So I don't know if you could speak to that.
No, I agree with you. I think that is me allowing them to get involved. Right? When I'm vulnerable and I talk about the business, it's not just me owning the business. We do it together.
Yes.
Right. And I think that, especially, when I always am talking about different models and running your practice, I think the W-2 model yields itself a little more to this is our place, as opposed to 1099s. Each have their own business and they're coming to work for you. Like they're doing their own thing.
Right.
Yeah. And that's actually how I started, was contractor. And my second contractor, we sat down together one day and she made some comment about, well, I bought this sofa so no one else's clients could sit on it but mine. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I cannot work somewhere where people are saying, this is mine, this is mine. We want to say, this is ours. And I'm going to have to change this model. And I did.
Well, and another thing that I'm hearing too is that, not necessarily every person that you've hired has worked out. You had a different model at the outset, but it seems like you're constantly pivoting. Something happens, you shift, and then something happens, you shift, but like really clear on what's driving you. And it seems like it really is those, like you said, relational. It's those connections with each other, and they're more than just a worker. They're a person. And you start out right out the gate when you're interviewing with that in mind. That's incredible.
Well,
so as you are doing all of these other things, because I know you have these other endeavors, consulting for sure, but your own podcast and retreats and summits and webinars, how do you juggle it all? So having a great team is definitely one component. What else would you say?
Yeah. So I want to start with, it looks like I'm really good at what I do, and it's really not that great. You're going to have a great experience working with me. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is I might not actually have all the administrative stuff as beautifully put together as it looks. I could say this for my work and my personal life: delegate, delegate, delegate. It takes a team all the time. Yeah. Even with my family, we have a nanny that helps with our kids and driving them around and stuff. Or if I need help, I'm calling a neighbor. Can you take my kid to school? Like, it's okay to reach out to people. And that's how instead of thinking, oh, I'm so weak because I'm reaching out to someone, think about the relationship you're creating by reaching out to someone. And, research shows that people would rather be asked to do a favor than ask for a favor. So we're actually creating a good experience for the other person when we ask them to help. So that's kind of cool. So that helps me ask.
Definitely.
Yeah. So with my practice, nothing's perfect, of course, but I have the leadership in place for it to function without me now. And it didn't feel like that forever, but now I can go out of town and not be worried about the practice. I have an office manager that I can give anything and everything to. She's got a credit card, for crying out loud, and it's fine, I've got a clinical director who is spot on clinically. Like, she does a lot of the same recommendations I would do if I was in that position. So that's big time. And then I also have a clinical supervisor too. In the state of Georgia, you got to have two separate people for LPCs and social workers. Okay. So I've got the clinical director does the social work, and the clinical supervisor does the counselors. So I've got all those people in place if something were to come, and then with the consulting, I honestly need more help, but I do have someone who's helping with my marketing a little bit. And I have someone who does my podcast for me. I can't imagine doing my own podcast. Like, if I can just get on and record, this is the part I love.
Yes.
So just do that and be done, and then they take care of all the marketing and putting it all together for me.
Okay. So it's okay to accept help, delegating, finding your people, finding the right people. So it seems like those have been the big pieces.
Definitely. Not getting too stuck on something. I'm realizing the more I grow and the more people that know me, there are haters out there, and they are going to hate on me. And people always told me that, and I got to be okay with it. And so I think that I could get really bogged down, because this happened pretty recently. I've been posting a little bit about it. I don't know if you've seen it, but someone really gave me some harsh words, and I got so wrecked. Like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm calling all my friends about it. What do you think? And I was like, screw it. Like, why am I so concerned? I don't even know this person. Like, let this go. And it was a distraction from what I feel like God's telling me to do. And it was amazing. Like, I'd been in kind of a slump at that point with consulting. And right after that happened and I moved through it, like, tons of people reached out for consulting. And I was like, wow, like, God wanted to take me through this process or whatever it was. And so I would say, like, not getting too bogged down in things, if it's emotional or just one project or whatever. And I think there's an importance in doing what you love. Like, it's easy to think, oh, well, this person's running this event. I need to do that. Like, not necessarily go to the event, but I mean, like, do the same kind of event. You know,
Sure.
People are going to forget about me. You know, all these stupid things we believe about ourselves. And you know why I'm hosting a retreat? Because I want to host a retreat and I want to have the experience of helping people who want to grow their faith in their business. And I had that idea because I went on a retreat where I was in prayer and I thought, gosh, like, this is a cool retreat, but what if everybody was in prayer? What if everybody was talking about God? That would be even better. That's why it's happening. The summit, like, I want to get faith-based practice owners together and I want them to not be so boring. Let's have fun. Let's have fun. So that's part of what that is I want to teach faith-based practice owners. I want them to connect with one another, but I want them to see ethical and appropriate ways to run their business, be successful, and have a good time doing it. And so that's why I'm running the summit. If I walk away with money, which I hope I do, great. If I walk away even, great. You know, like, don't do things for money. Do them because you want to do them. And I think that's the sweet spot in the work I do, is because you love what you're doing and you're not depending on the money.
So that ties into integrity. It sounds like you're doing things that are in alignment, but it also really speaks to the piece you talked about with, I think we're inherently people pleasers. And it sounds like we both had those phases where we were really putting others over self, and what a transformation to be at a place where, are there going to be benefits to other people by hosting this retreat and this summit? Of course. But the main driving force is that you're doing it because it feels right to you. And then you can't lose ultimately. So that's wonderful
right.
that you've gotten to that point. So with this feedback,
yeah, well,
I mean, I'm hearing you. Oh, I'm sure. But hearing you talk about the feedback, and I appreciate you sharing that, I actually had a reaction to it, because I can only imagine if that were in the reverse. And obviously in times in my life where I've been in those situations, it can really bog you down and get you off course. But it sounds like you refocused and channeled your energy into other things. Any tips on that piece for those listening that can relate to that feeling?
Yeah. Slowing down and thinking through why you're getting triggered, right? What is that about? I think I tell people this advice all the time, and I didn't take it myself. Consider the source. Not only how well do they know you and what's your relationship to them, but how are they speaking to you? Are they speaking to you in a helpful format, or are they saying hateful words that are hurtful? Because I think we can give negative feedback in a kind way. And this was not a kind way. So I think those are some of the things. Having people in your life that know you and can give you that honest feedback, you know, not people who are just going to scratch your back and say, it's okay, you'll get through it. You know, someone who's going to say, you know what, I think that's accurate, or I don't think that's accurate, or how can I help you through this? Like, you need those authentic friendships.
One of the other things that I'm thinking, one of the members of my team, a newer addition who is incredible, after the situation that I referenced where we had to, unfortunately, one of our clinicians transitioned out of the practice. His advice was, the longer you're in practice, the more people you hire and the more you grow your team. And I think for you and I, the more we're pursuing our passions, we are bound to open ourselves up to more people, a larger audience. And it is just statistically more likely for there to be people that do not necessarily align with us. And that is actually okay. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that we internalize. So,
Julie, I think you're spot on. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and I was grateful that I had that feedback. So another example of how people can really come together, the right people, when you're going through a tough time, and support you through it. So what would you say would be one major, there's so many, but major takeaway, or something that you'd want people to still be thinking about after they stop listening to this episode today?
I would like to tell people to stop working so hard and enjoy what they do. I mean, at the end of the day, do you want to look back on your life and be like, I was so successful, I made all this money, and just feel like you never did fun things, you never enjoyed your life? Like, take the time to stop working, enjoy your kids. Take the time to stop working and go out of town, take a vacation, enjoy a retreat, be engaged in relationships, because that's what's really going to matter in your life.
Definitely could not agree more. So for those people that want to follow along with what you're doing, continue to learn more about you, or get in touch for any of the services that you provide, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yes. So I have a website. It's super easy to remember, WhitneyOwens.com. So there you're going to find lots of information. My husband tells me I sound like I own 3 businesses, but I just want to share a little bit about some fun things going on. So first, most fun is the Retreat and Rethink event, and that's going to be in Asheville. So that's a retreat for faith-based practice owners to slow down, rest, think about patterns of rest and work in their lives, and like how do we implement those when we get home. But it's also going to be a time to actually rest and to actually have fun. So I am really thrilled because Julia, you will be there, and that's this will be the first time we're in person together. And so I am really looking forward to that event. We do have a couple of spots. We're over halfway full, so we have a few more spots if somebody's listening and wants in on that. That's going to be in Asheville. And then I'm doing lots of fun retreats, like summits and things this year, attending. So I'm excited about that. But I also am hosting a summit. That I'm pretty sure you're coming to that too.
I'll be there.
That's right. Okay. So that summit is going to be in October here in Savannah, and it's also for faith-based practice owners, but that one is more for education, learning, growth, connection. And it's going to be right here on the water. So I'm really looking forward to that summit as well. Some great speakers. So if you go to my website, you can get all that information. Also, you can grab a freebie if you want to grab that if you are a faith-based practice owner. Or maybe if you just have any kind of business that would network with churches, there is a document there on my website right at the top. Just click there, and it is 4 tips on networking with churches, because it's hard to know, how do you get in? What do you say? Who do I talk to? And so that document will help you with that as well. So that freebie is available to your audience.
Okay, awesome. And I think people should follow you on Instagram because you're a lot of fun.
Thank you. Whitney Owens Consulting. And Julia, I did one the other day. Just this week, it was stop listening to stupid people.
Now I know where that came from.
I was like, all right, I love it.
Well, I love the personal touch. I mean, obviously, it's a way for all of us to get to know each other on a deeper level. But I am so grateful for the work that you do, for how authentic you are, for the advice that you've given, and to be able to host these events. I'm really looking forward to it. So this is my first year of actually participating in these types of retreats, and every single person that I talk to about them speaks to how it was transformative for them in some way. So watch out, world, because there's going to be a lot of ingenuity and creativity and inspiration that is going to come from this. I know it, I feel it, and it sounds like you can really speak to that. So thank you for providing that forum for people to come together.
Well, I think it's fun, so it's my honor to do so.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you, and you've been so supportive over the years, and that means a lot to me.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being here today, and I'm really excited to share all of this with you, and there's some great takeaways. So thanks, Whitney.
Thank you.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.